Insight and intel to create an impact. That is the name of the game here in BISNOMICS. Welcome to your weekend's most profitable 60 minutes. I'm Tharindu Amarasekara, and this is the show where we intend to prepare you for the tomorrow's challenges today. There's a famous quote that says, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a few steps. With billions of people around the world going on such long journeys, that sure sounds to be a lot of steps. Steps mean feet, feet means shoes. What about the global footwear industry? And most importantly, in this industry, where is Sri Lanka? Where did we go wrong, or are we on the right trajectory here? Let's talk about that today and more with our special guest joining us, who is none other than Maalik Aziz, CEO of Service Shoes Lanka. Maalik, welcome to BISNOMICS.
Thank you, Tharindu. Thank you very much for having me.
Let's tread on the right path here about the global footwear industry.
Yeah.
Maalik, now, first of all, how big is the global footwear industry and how big is the Sri Lankan footwear industry? Let's talk about some numbers here.
So to put it into perspective, Tharindu, Sri Lanka had export earnings of around $100 million in 2019. Due to the global pandemic last year, it halved to just over $50 million. This wasn't the case right along. If you look at the mid-2010s, we were at about $150 million. So it has actually declined since. If you're looking at a global picture, China is by far the largest producer of footwear. They produced about 11 billion units of 11 billion pairs of footwear in last year. And the distant second is actually India, who produced about 2 billion pairs of shoes and roughly around 10% of global production. So when you're looking in perspective, Sri Lanka is actually a small, very small player.
Almost insignificant.
Quite insignificant, but the thing is, we have potential, Tharindu, to grow Sri Lanka as a location and a destination for footwear. I mean, we're using, we have a strong supply chain for the apparel industry. We should use that in our footwear production, and also some of the local raw materials such as rubber. We should be using that a lot more in our production.
Maalik, now, if you look at the Sri Lankan footwear industry, let's get into some details here. With more focus on exports like apparel and other exports, did we lose focus on the footwear industry somewhere down the line? Did our footwear industry of Sri Lanka go wrong at some point?
So, Tharindu, a little known fact is in the 1990s and early 2000s, we had a very strong footwear production and footwear export business out of Sri Lanka. You know, in fact, Sri Lanka was exporting to some of the largest brands in the world at the time. Due to various reasons, we don't need to go into that level of detail, but due to various reasons, we lost that, and we are not there right now. But I wouldn't say that it's due to a focus on the apparel industry, you know, because there's no reason why we can't run the two industries simultaneously together.
So you're saying that at some point the ball was dropped?
I mean, something went wrong somewhere. I mean, I can't point a finger at it, you know, but we had a strong, we had a bunch of good factories producing good quality footwear for top brands, and we were doing good volumes, and it just did not continue. There was no momentum to grow that business, unfortunately.
In fact, in many interviews, so many top corporate leaders of some of these are conglomerates that have also been into footwear industry. They've openly said, we decided to drop out because we realized that they were not paying the required attention for this industry, which I think is unfortunate.
Yeah, absolutely unfortunate, Tharindu, because there was a big scope to grow business. If you are aware of the numbers and the brands that we were producing for, it's a shame that we lost a majority of that. So, I mean, we are trying in a small way to try to revive the industry in Sri Lanka, you know.
Maalik, let's talk about the pandemic. Now, this is something I'm quite sure you have experienced as well. As you said, there was a big impact, but more people staying at home, less travels. What has been the overall impact of COVID-19 on the global footwear industry?
Yeah, so that's a good question you asked me, Tharindu, because 2020 was probably the most challenging year for any footwear producer anywhere in the world. So to put it into a number, the global output of footwear dropped by 4 billion units in 2020 compared to 2019 numbers. Basically, we lost 10 years of production growth worldwide in just a single year. So
Big blow.
that was the blow to the entire industry, right? Then, of course, we had changes in purchasing, how people were buying, and so what we realized is our customers that had a heavy presence in online sales fared quite reasonably okay, quite reasonably well. But some of our other customers who had more kind of brick and mortar stores,
Where they were dependent on the physical stores.
they were depending on the physical stores. They did not do so well because of, I mean, every country at one point at one point in time in last year either had a lockdown or a pay cut, a furlough scheme, or whatever. So it
or
definitely
multiple lockdowns and even economic recessions.
yeah, and so it definitely affected sales big time. And also, Tarinder, since you asked the question, the actual purchasing, purchasing patterns changed drastically. So when there's no events to go to, there's no office to go to, people are not inclined to buy that type of product. So they're looking at more kind of athletic shoes where you can work out from home. So the entire buying pattern changed. So we also had to adapt quite quickly. Whereas traditionally we were producing more kind of, cookie cutter product, so to say. But very quickly we realized that what our customers demanded more comfort product, that look nice, that can be worn throughout the day. So it was challenging for us, but I mean, we are one of the lucky ones who weathered the storm and are still here to talk about it.
So what you're saying is people still bought shoes, just that they bought lesser number of shoes and they bought different types of shoes, like the more athletic shoes and the shoes to use while working out at home, etc. That's a good perspective there. Maalik, for let's say a layman to understand how this industry really works, can you explain to us about the value chain? What are the ingredients we are looking at? What kind of operations? What kind of logistics are we looking at? Explain to us about how the dynamics of the value chain of the footwear industry works, because this is not an industry we see being spoken about very often. And that's exactly why here in BISNOMICS we thought we'll hear it from somebody who is in the ring, taking on the blows, pulling the punches, or rather giving the punches and trying to keep this industry flourishing. You're in that front row, you're in the ring for this industry. Tell us about what exactly is in the value chain of this sector.
Sure. So you have to break it down to which product of footwear you're producing, right? So I mean, when you look at leather shoes, Tarindo, then the supply chain completely varies. You are starting from leather, from tannery level to then the entire gamut of components that's needed to produce a shoe. So to start off in that field, because that's basically 95% of our production, so to say, we are not strong in the supply chain of leather, starting from the most raw material that we use in our production. So at every given stage, we need to improve our supply chain. I mean, that's the only way the industry can grow. If you look at the apparel industry, 50% of raw materials, I mean, plus or minus a few percentage every here and there, 50% is imported raw material, right? For us, it's a higher percentage. So we are trying to work with local suppliers to improve their productivity, to improve their product offering, the lead times, the pricing. So it's a kind of a journey. It's not something we can do overnight. But of course, we are working on it, and also we are looking at using more local resources in our production, offering it to our export customers, right? So
you will say sourcing the required raw materials locally.
I mean, yeah, definitely. So some an example I can give you is we are trying to piggyback off the supply chain that's already in Sri Lanka for the apparel industry. So one of the fastest growing segments of footwear globally is footwear with textile uppers, but not just the basic textile uppers. These are value add more kind of sneakers, kind of more high end products. So we are trying to get into that type of product offering, and also we are quite good at this knitting. So we are trying to get into shoes with knitted uppers. So we are working with some local.
Quite innovative.
Yeah, and also looking at kind of the raw materials itself, trying to be more socially ethical. We are trying to work with suppliers using recycled plastic from ocean plastic that's collected in our footwear. So I mean, there's there's a lot that can improve, but also we are trying to make the best of what's available here.
And when we are talking about the supply chain and the value chain here,
Yeah.
Maalik, if you look at the production, low in Sri Lanka,
Yeah.
how is it tilted? Is it more manual labor with less machines used, or how is the production process, to which side is the pendulum swinging?
I mean, footwear production is not a very highly capital intensive production, right? But also, so to say, it's not highly labor intensive either. It sits somewhere in the middle. Proper investment in good innovative machinery or innovative technology can actually be a game changer for us, and we are definitely looking at that. But to answer your question, it kind of sits in the middle. It's not neither highly capital intensive nor highly labor intensive.
And then comes the outbound logistics, getting the products out to the customers. Now, I believe you being focused on the export market, surely, Maalik, this is not a good time to be talking about freight fees. Am I right?
No, it's actually the worst time for me since I joined this industry, or since I've been in the export industry. Freight rates are through the roof. We are finding it hard to even book space on containers.
Even at that high prices.
Yeah. There's a severe shortage of equipment or containers.
And correct me if I'm wrong. Since May 2020 to now, to August 2021, they say freight prices have gone up by more than 10 times from Asia to Europe. Is that right?
Absolutely correct. Yeah. So you're spot on with that number. So you can only imagine how manufacturing export industries in companies in Sri Lanka are facing right now, because we import a lot of our raw material, so we are paying
freight fees for that.
The freight on that, and in some cases we are paying freight to the customer. So in some cases the customer pays for the freight, but in some cases the factory pays. So it's really gone through the roof.
And overall, when it comes to the marketing of this, Maalik, Sri Lankan made footwear, footwear made in Sri Lanka. I know there are many categories, but footwear made in Sri Lanka, where does it stand in the world?
That's a good question, Tarindo. We are not known, Sri Lanka unfortunately is not known as a destination for footwear.
Correct, because Sri Lanka tea or Ceylon tea, Sri Lanka apparel, yes, but Sri Lanka footwear?
Yeah, we are not known as a destination. So it's kind of, it's a challenge, quoting some of these larger brands to produce in Sri Lanka, because we are traditionally not known for production of shoes. I mean, like you said, you go tell someone, you are producing high-end apparel, sportswear or lingerie. I mean, we have some of the best manufacturing plants here, but for footwear, it just doesn't exist. So I mean, it's a challenge that I've taken to kind of try to change the perspective of some of these foreign buyers. So,
to be a trailblazer.
I mean,
fantastic journey, and once again, good to see that journey being started, Maalik. We are going to come back to you on more details on that.
Yeah.
Stay tuned. We will be back after this short break. This is BISNOMICS. Welcome back to BISNOMICS, your weekend's most profitable 60 minutes. Our focus is on the footwear industry of Sri Lanka, an industry which we don't often hear being spoken of, but probably has great potential moving forward. And we are in conversation with Maalik Aziz. Maalik, now let's talk more about the challenges that our footwear industry is facing. Why do you think that to the level that apparel has taken over? Why do you think the Sri Lankan footwear industry is not really growing to that level? What are your thoughts?
So one thing I see, Tarindo, is a quick fix for this is kind of liberalizing the local industry, reduce the competition, kind of open it up a little more, because this immediately... You
mean increase the competition, to allow more parties to be in and reduce the level of probably the legislations and
So footwear is highly protected, the local industry. So a quick fix to that, the way I see it, is opening it up to other players. This immediately improves efficiency, immediately improves innovation or innovative products. This is the starting point which leads to us, Sri Lanka as a country, being more competitive in the export market. For me, it starts here. And also there needs to be a focus on the supply chain. Yes, we definitely need more factories, more companies coming into the footwear industry, manufacturing industry, to create a destination of sorts for Sri Lanka. But together with that, there needs to be a focused approach on the supply chain, improving the supply chain, having the complete value chain located in Sri Lanka. That would be a real game changer for us.
And when we see the balance of imports and exports, because I believe that we are importing a large amount of footwear to Sri Lanka as well.
Yeah.
Why can't we really start off by trying to fulfill the footwear needs of the country itself? Don't you think there itself its potential? Because already we are speaking about the amount of outflow of foreign currency reserves, and we are at a point where it has dropped to drastic levels, Maalik.
Yeah.
Don't you think that that's a good starting point, trying to cut down on some of these imported ready-made footwear?
I 100% agree with you. So to start off that, we need to create more competition at home. There is a lack of new large-scale factories opening up for the local market. It needs to kind of open up a lot more. Also, something the government could potentially do is, allow companies that are focused on exports to increase or to sell some of their product or more of their product locally. Of course, paying all the due taxes and whatnot, but at least reducing the legislation to do so.
So right now they are not allowed to do that.
No, I wouldn't say we're not allowed to, but it's kind of restricted, right? So definitely, like you said, we should try to self-fulfill our domestic requirement. There's no need for that, but also with the mind of improving our exports, because we need to bring in foreign revenue. I mean, that's where the global market is. That's where the money is, right, so to speak. Put it into perspective. I told you earlier that India was the second largest producer, but in fact, that's considering their local Indian market business. But if you consider exports, actually Vietnam has taken over now. So China is number one, still exporting more than 50% of their production. But Vietnam now exports accounts for over 10% of total global exports. So this is the type of thing we should be aspiring to as a country. So of course we should look at our domestic consumption, but also we need to look at ways and strategies and ways and means to improve our exports and our offering to the world.
And do we have the required talent for this, Maalik? Do you think, let's talk about labor, right? Do you think that we have the labor required for this, or is labor a problem?
Okay, so that's something you probably heard in the recent past, about this labor shortage. So definitely, Tarindu, there is a shortage of labor in the country. But when I say labor, I'm talking of two parts here, right? The skilled and unskilled. For the footwear industry, there's a shortfall in both. When I say skilled, I'm talking about proper shoemaking technical skills. We don't have a steady flow, unfortunately, of young people coming out with good technical or internationally recognized technical training to come in and take over some of our jobs. But and also the lack of unskilled labor. There's a big shortfall, and I think this is being seen in the apparel industry as well. So we really need to see what needs to happen. I mean, if we are to remain competitive, and I'm not talking only about footwear right now, manufacturing as a whole, including apparel industry as well. If we are to remain competitive in 10 years from now, we as a country should seriously look at this. Where are we headed? What are we to do? And of course, one of the something that really needs to happen is we need to invest in innovation and kind of streamlining some of the processes, be less reliant on human resources. But in the same time, the need for human capital is may reduce in certain ways, but may increase in other ways. So we need to look at it as a country.
Maalik, you mentioned about not having enough properly qualified skilled workers coming in. What are the options available for these students? Let's say even the school dropouts. Now, we always speak about after O-level how people drop out and then they just end up with not doing anything productive or end up riding the tuk-tuks.
Yes.
Is there a way where, let's say, a kid who is dropping out of school after O-level, for him or her to go to learn more about this industry, Are there the proper vocational training courses, or are there other avenues of government or private sector where people could learn about this industry? What are the options available in Sri Lanka?
So definitely there are a couple of options specifically in the government sector. Government has provided some technical training schools.
Courses.
Yeah, it's available, but it's not. It needs to be kind of. The net needs to be wider. You know, it needs. We need to attract more people getting into these programs. We need more graduates coming out of these programs, and also the private sector can also do a little. I mean, when I talk about the private sector, I'm talking about private universities and the training institutes that are there. They also should and could offer more of these kind of technical courses to do with, you know, whether it's pattern making or, you know, designing shoes. It's a big there's a big scope for this, not only in Sri Lanka but worldwide. I don't see why more Sri Lankans are not getting involved in something like this.
Maalik, you mentioned about China, about Vietnam, how they are, you know, of course, China is an established giant, not only in footwear, I believe, in any kind of manufacturing, whereas Vietnam is the new rising tiger.
Yeah.
What can we learn from them? Share with us, because you are observing the market, you are seeing what's happening out there.
Yeah.
What do you see? Where do they have the advantage, and what can we as a country learn from them for our footwear industry?
So really, they have got to where they are now, not overnight. It's been a journey. So we are also, I mean, we were on that trajectory, Sri Lanka, like I mentioned, maybe 20 years ago, 20, 25 years ago. We kind of lost our way. We need to be focused. We need, I mean, firstly, we need more competition. We need a lot more people being involved in this industry, you know, in various forms of the value chain, whether it's from raw materials to, you know, producing shoes. So this is a policy maybe the government can take up to promote this business, to promote this industry, right? And of course, from there on, it's how you present it to the world. You need to be able to attract foreign customers to come in. In fact, strategically, I think Sri Lanka is better off in that sense of the word because of our kind of geographical location and being an island. A lot of designers I've come to know love traveling to our factory.
And now we are accepting digital nomads as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think following that trajectory is not hard, but we need to be focused. We need to have clear policy directions, both from industry as well as government. And I think the sky is the limit from there, really.
It's always good to be positive on the industry, Maalik, and some very encouraging thoughts there. Stay tuned. We will be back after this short break. This is BISNOMICS. Welcome back to BISNOMICS. We are in conversation with Maalik Aziz regarding the footwear industry of Sri Lanka. What steps need to be taken? What challenges are we facing now? And most importantly, how can you be a part of the action? Maalik, now let's talk about government policy. I know you mentioned certain points earlier, but let's get into the details here. What, as a person, as a very vital member of the local footwear industry, heading a leading footwear company as well, what is your message to the government? If the government authorities and the officials are watching this show, what do you need them to know that they should be doing to uplift this industry?
Yeah, so Tarinder, again, good question you asked me. Like I said earlier, we need to kind of open up this industry right now. It's time for more players. It's time for competition. It's time for us to, you know, as a nation, go out to the world. I mean, protecting the domestic companies is good policy, you know, but it's kind of short term looking, you know. If you're looking at the bigger
picture, it gives a very fake comfort cushion.
I mean, it's like this. If you're protecting the domestic industry, all well and good. Which, I mean, it's good policy, so to speak. But in hindsight, if you look at it on the flip side, look at the consumer. The consumers would be better off if they had more efficient pricing, better product, you know, better range of products by offering more foreign companies to come in, and our local producers would be more efficient, and therefore they'll be able to compete with, you know, the giants of the export industry, the world footwear market all over the world.
From countries like China and Vietnam, etc.
China, Vietnam, we don't even need to look there for now, Tarinder. I think, right now our competition is across the pond, our neighbors in India, because huge. So India is the second biggest producer of leather footwear in the world. There's a massive industry there. We don't need to be going after the Vietnams and Chinas of the world now. I mean, these guys are across the pond.
Yeah.
We can learn from them and also compete with them, because I honestly don't see why. So basically, what I'm trying to say is there's no reason why we can't
Go for that market share.
We can't go for that market share for sure.
Maalik, when we look at this footwear industry, what are the new trends that we are seeing? Now, you mentioned about leather, but I believe also now we live in a world where veganism is taking on big way, and people are talking about 3D printed shoes. Tell us all about these new trends we see, Maalik.
Yeah, so you're spot on, Tarinder. So I'll first start on kind of what you mentioned, and then I'll carry on from there. So this 3D printed shoes is a new thing and is catching on, right? Because people love to have a very personalized product now. It's
Made to them, made to fit.
Made to measure is a real thing now, and it's an affordable thing. Back in the day, maybe it was not so. Especially for shoes, it will be much easier to get a made-to-measure suit, but to get a made-to-measure pair of shoes would cost an arm and a leg.
Absolutely.
So a lot of
That's a good.
yeah. So some brands now are offering in-store 3D printed shoes. So you pick your upper material, your colors. They scan your foot, and within an hour or so you have a pair of shoes, which is unthinkable of those days. Then all these other materials. So when you mentioned vegan, there's a big trend going now to leather substitutes, right? So people are more conscious, ethically conscious. Animal cruelty and all that has come under the spotlight. So
and also, I believe some organizations like the PETA, they have been carrying out some global campaigns against specifically leather shoes and leather products.
Yeah. So one misconception I need to correct: leather product or leather footwear. Leather products is a byproduct of the meat industry. Most animals, I'm not saying all, most animals are killed for the meat industry, and their byproduct is used for leather.
Okay.
Right. But saying that, there is a conscious move from consumers in the West, especially, to move away from leather. So even we are looking at leather substitute. So there are all sorts of things popping up, from pineapple-based leather to various. So various things that even we are working on, doing some product development. So it's quite interesting. So then from there on, you're moving to all the ethically conscious. People are looking at raw materials from the source. So even like I said earlier, we are doing some products where we are using the yarn derived from recycled plastic bottles collected from the beaches in Sri Lanka. So I mean, that's the trend kind of where things are moving. And if you look at in a design element, Tarinder, back in the day, the traditional footwear for men and women would be kind of black and brown, standard cookie cutter,
standard colors
products. Now it's changing. Now so some of what we are seeing is similar styles maybe for men and women, but the construction is the same as how you construct a sneaker, like a running shoe, but it looks like a dress shoe. So it's like more this whole element of comfort is being kind of thrown in. So a lot of changes. It's not the industry maybe it was 20 years ago. Materials are changing daily. We are looking at new products, and customers are demanding newer, more comfortable elements in product and design. So it's changing, and it's quite interesting the way the trajectory where it's headed.
Do you see a future where people can print their own shoe at home?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. I don't think we are far away from from 3D printers being more accessible. You know, right now, maybe, but with scale, the cost of this is bound to come down. With that, 100%. I mean, it comes down to a point where you just share a file. You know, that's the IP of a designer, intellectual property of a designer or a pattern maker. That's
So
all.
future shoe brands might not be making shoes; they might design the shoes, 3D design, and sell that design.
Absolutely.
Where you can print it the way you want.
Yeah,
Crazy future to think of, Maalik.
World is headed in a very interesting trajectory. We don't know where we are headed, but all options are on the table for sure.
Maalik, when you talk about the consumer market,
Yeah.
who are the leading consumer markets for this industry, and what can we do to kind of get into those markets?
Yeah. So by far, the USA is the biggest market, right? As importers of footwear.
Yes.
And of course, then you can look at the countries with the highest highest population geographically, as China and then India.
But I believe China and India, they will fulfill their own
largely, China and India kind of, if you look at the numbers, fulfill their own requirements. So as an absolute importer, the USA is #1 by far, followed by some of the other Western countries. So interesting question you asked, because while the US and Europe are the biggest importers, about 85% of total footwear production and export lies in Asia, where we are sitting right now.
So we are where the action is happening.
We are absolutely where the action is happening. So while more kind of, I say, old school traditional shoemaking countries like Italy are losing market share to countries.
Are they?
Yeah, they are losing market share to countries like Asia in terms of pure production.
Yes.
You know, there may be some trading being happening in those countries. You know, inflating some of their numbers. But in terms of pure production, by and large, the majority lies in this part of the world.
Maalik, for any investor who is thinking about entering this industry, what would be your advice to them?
That's a tough one. Bite the bullet. Bite the bullet. I mean, the rewards are there. It's
tough times.
Now, I mean, definitely tough times. But the future is bright. Let's put it that way. There's definitely a bright future ahead of us. So I mean, trust in that and trust in the process.
For sure.
Yeah.
Maalik, and if you look at the designers, because we do have a flourishing design industry in this country.
Yeah.
What kind of skills are we needing from them for them to be a part of this action? Because I believe footwear industry also needs designers.
Yeah.
And if you are to speak to designers, fashion designers, who are thinking, should I enter into the footwear design side or not?
Yeah.
What would you like to share with them? Your thoughts, because you're somebody who might even end up recruiting these designers.
Absolutely.
So what do you look for in designers? Because creativity also plays a big role in any industry, especially fashion related.
Yeah.
What is your advice to them?
So, you know, with design and designing, it comes down to your eye, you know, how you perceive a product.
Eye for detail.
Eye for detail. The technical side of things is something you can learn quite easily. Whether you're making a pattern or whether you're designing an apparel related product or a shoe. Of course, the technicalities are different by and large, but it comes down to the eye and the level of detail. If you have that within yourself, there's nothing stopping you, you know, being a shoe designer. I mean, it's quite fulfilling. It's quite an interesting job. Yeah.
And in terms of the employees, the labor force, we did mention some issues which they face.
Yeah.
What is their mindset right now, Maalik? Do they see themselves as being a part of an important industry, or do they see this as like a forgotten and lost industry? What do you are with them, you see what they're going through, you see what their emotions are. Is this an industry they would want their children to come and be a part of?
Yeah. So, Tarindu, a lot of employees who are currently employed with us have worked in a shoe factory previously. A lot of there were a few shoe factories, export-oriented shoe factories, that closed down within the last 10 years. We have
adding more gloom to the doom.
Adding some gloom to the doom, yes. But we have taken on a lot of them, and they're quite passionate about the skill that they have within themselves, and they want to stick it out. They want to improve. They want to grow this business. the employees that I have, touch wood, are very passionate. I would say they're very proud to be, in this industry, because they've been part of this journey, for some 10, some 20 years. So in that sense, we are quite lucky.
Maalik, one entrepreneur I spoke to, this gentleman is of course a very famous shoe entrepreneur, footwear entrepreneur in Sri Lanka, in Colombo. When I asked him, what he said was that, oh, well, you know what, I make customized shoes. My order books are full for the next 2-3 months. And he said, even for me, yes, material is the issue. He said, but I have people who are willing to come and pay 30,000, 40,000 to get a pair of shoes. Yeah. I have no problem in that. Yeah. Is it a case that the industry is not really matching up to the value expectations? Because if one entrepreneur says, look, my order books are full and I have enough orders to run the next 3 months, and people are willing to pay 30, 40,000. Yeah. Is it a case that maybe some of the local players need to match up to those value expectations and target the right audience? Is that not the focus that we are missing out?
I mean, yes and no. We definitely need more people like the gentleman or lady you just mentioned, who would do kind of made-to-measure product, who would do these one-off kind of high-value products. But also we need more of kind of more mid-scale, kind of mid-level to low-level, larger scale companies manufacturing to provide footwear for a kind of a larger segment of the market. So both are very necessary in my opinion.
Have the right mix in the market.
We need to have the right. It can't be one or the other. It needs to be both, and both need to grow. Yes, definitely.
Maalik, on a final note, with regard to, since you very passionately spoke about the overall manufacturing sector of the country as well, correct me if I'm wrong, but value addition has not been a strong game for Sri Lankan manufacturing. Now, today we speak about medical footwear. Yeah. Right? Footwear for people with certain types of diseases such as diabetes and so on. Yeah. Is that not an opportunity that Sri Lankan footwear manufacturers should explore?
Yes, I don't see why not in terms of medical footwear. But also, Tarindo, one of the largest footwear brands in the world uses is crepe rubber soles as part of their USP. We should be using, we are one of the we're not the biggest, but we are a large producer of rubber in this country. We should be tapping some of the resources to offer these products.
And you say right now we are not doing that.
Not enough. Not enough. We should offer more of what's available within, and also tapping into some of the other supply chain, the supply chain of other industries, but also our natural resources. We can offer a differentiated product, from Sri Lanka.
From Sri Lanka.
Yeah,
absolutely. Maalik Aziz, thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your insights and thoughts about the Sri Lankan footwear industry. Wishing you and the team good luck to keep this industry alive, to take it to the next level. And I sincerely hope that your thoughts you shared with us today here on BISNOMICS will be heard by the right members of the right authorities and take necessary steps to revive our footwear industry.
Thank you for having me, Tarindo. Thank you.
And with that, we wrap up today's episode of BISNOMICS. No matter what business you may be in, have a profitable week ahead and stay safe.